The top 50 albums of the decade. Top 50. Bloody hell, has this been hard to rank. There isn't too much time to waste here, as I have already done the 100 to 51 video, so hopefully you've seen that before you watch this one. I would recommend you watch that before you watch this one, so I will leave a link in the description and all that stuff. And as well, it would be good if you saw the honorable mentions video. I talk about 85 albums in that one. It's pretty long, but you know, you can always put it on like 2 times speed or whatever, 3 times speed if you need to. I don't even know. If you want to do that, it's up to you, whatever. But it just would get a good representation of what I felt to be the best albums throughout the course of the 2010s. There's a lot of albums that got missed off the list that, you know, deserve to be here, but it's just hard to rank 100. It isn't that big of a number when you think about it. So watch those videos, subscribe to the channel as well to get more videos in the future. Hopefully you enjoy this. Share it around too. Share it with your mum, and consider, you know, contributing to my Patreon. I do have a Patreon here. Obviously, lots of these videos are very time consuming. I'd like to think I work quite hard on them. And if you would like to donate even a little bit, you know, just $1 a month or whatever, that would be amazing. So just consider that. Thank you. And let's get into this top 50 list. Oh, top 50. Ooh. At number 50. We have an album that I liked at first, but I never expected it to actually be in the top 100, but then somehow it's here in the top 50. This has grown on me massively since its release, and we have Sinjin Hawke with First Opus. I know, you're probably like thinking, what, you got this here, man? What, that's crazy, but hear me out, listen. This shit has aged so well. In a decade filled with wonky, experimental, I guess you could brand it, strange, otherworldly electronic music that just manipulates all kinds of sounds that we never really heard in any other decade, to be honest. I think Sinjin Hawke may come out on top in terms of this creativity that he's thrown in on this album here. And even at its most surface level response that you would have to this album, I just think it's pretty much just filled with fun bangers. That's pretty much the whole package that this album offers. It's just banger after banger, and I think it's a really, really impressive display of what we've had in electronic music in the 2010s. At number 49 here, I have Bruno Pernadas with Those Who Throw Objects at Crocodiles Will Be Asked to Retrieve Them. Certainly one of the most surreal and bizarre album titles I think I've come across over the past 10 years. But luckily, I think the music is quite tasty and quite special too. When talking about blending styles of music together from versatile artists, I think Bruno is definitely up there with one of the most creative displays of blending styles of jazz music, art pop music, even krautrock, psychedelic music. Like, this album has so much to offer, and I just find it to be such a summery, blissful listen. It's quite a loungy, laid-back listen, but it certainly keeps my attention for the runtime. I mean, I find Bruno's approach to this style so mellow and lush that it's really hard not to say no to it, honestly. Definitely check this out again if you've never listened to it. It's a pretty nice, undiscovered gem, I must say. Next on my list, at number 48, I have the ferocious noise rock band Daughters. But unfortunately, the album from 2018 didn't quite make the list. I did mention it as an honorable mention, though, for the 2010s. But their 2010 album hits me a lot harder than I think the 2018 one does, even though both are definitely worthy of being on this list. While You Won't Get What You Want is there to give you a panic attack, freak you out, and scare all the hoes away, their self-titled album from 2010 just offers something a bit more full for me. I just find the elements of their noisy rock approach just slightly more impactful. The instrumentals just crash into your ears. The vocalist, I mean, what is there to say about this guy's voice? It is quite unbelievable to listen to, honestly. Certainly a major highlight in rock music for the 2010s, and I think Daughters are a force to be reckoned with, honestly. If they keep this momentum up, they could be dropping more and more amazing albums as the years go by. At number 47, I have Klô Pelgag with... Honestly, I'm not even going to try saying this album title. Usually I attempt it, but I'm just not going to bother. There's no way I'm going to pronounce this correctly. I'm just going to make myself look like an idiot and insult the entire French nation. This is French pop at its best. If you are a fan of French pop music, you know, your Francois Hardys, your Serge Gainsbourgs, or anyone else in that field from like the 60s to 70s, then Klô Pelgag is channeling that era of music and bringing it to a modern day sound that I think works incredibly well. Her vocals are glorious to listen to. Some of the tracks have quite repetitive refrains and they really do get stuck in your mind. It is a beautiful pop album, and honestly I don't usually describe pop music in that kind of way, but I think Klô Pelgag really deserves that adjective. She earned it. She really earned that adjective. Well done. At number 46, I am potentially cheating with this one, but I honestly don't mind because I think it is a little bit of an ambiguous release in terms of how you would label it. I think it is technically an EP, I will say that, but I feel like it is so much more than that to me. Throughout this decade, I've played it that much that it just feels like an album from start to finish somehow, and that is Carly Rae Jepsen's Emotions Side B. Yeah, sure, it is not like... I guess like a fully fleshed out album because it is B-sides, but my god, does it flow that way? And honestly, to me it just feels so much better than the full albums that she's put out over the past 10 years too, which I know isn't a particularly popular take because I know a lot of people love Dedicated, and that's fine, you know. I like seeing people show that much love for Carly's music. Same with Emotion, but those albums to me just aren't quite as good as what she was doing on this EP, and I can't really explain how or why. I think what it is that there's no room to mess up on these tracks. Like, there aren't enough tracks, there isn't enough time to really make a dud, and there isn't any duds, whereas I could probably point out quite a few duds on Dedicated, and maybe one or two, or maybe just a couple on Emotion that I'm not really feeling as much, but every track on Emotion Side B is just killer. It is killer. Her vocals, of course, are as good as ever. It might not have her best songs ever on here, because I would say some of her best surely are Run Away With Me, Emotion, Julian, but it's just exactly what I want from a pop album, and I just want to hear more B-sides from her, honestly, because if they're as good as this, yeah, she's gonna keep killing it. At number 45, I now have George Clanton's Slide, which is another album that just seemed to grow on me like crazy. I feel like that's a huge experience with music for me personally. Like, I just end up having albums that I like to start with, and then suddenly they become some of my favorites of all time, and this is just like the perfect example of that, and there's loads more coming on this list as well, by the way. George's approach to music, I think, is incredibly unique. He is a gifted artist when it comes to crafting songs like this. Like, I think this is exactly why it grows on you, because at first you're not entirely sure what to make of his voice, to make of the way the songs are mixed. His vocals kind of get buried at times, but then you just suddenly realize the beauty of it all, and it all just ends up becoming incredibly euphoric. The way he sings the words, God, it just makes you feel like you're hanging on to every last word he says. I love this album because at first you're just not really that invested in his lyrics, but then you just suddenly become so invested in what he's saying with the way he says them, and I just think that's that's just what art can do. Like, the way he makes this music is special. And I think, you know, he's another artist, I said this a few times in this series, where the next decade is coming and he could really take it and make some amazing music. And I'm just excited to see where it goes. But, you know, I've got this album slide here and I'm pretty happy with what I've got for a very long time. And number 44, I think this is easily the longest album on this list here, with 52 tracks and 2 hours in length. It is a compilation album from Mikael Tariverdiev with film music. For an album of that length that I just mentioned there, you would probably predict that there'd be a few skips, a few duds in the track listing, but there isn't. There really is not. And for a style of music that's pretty much dead and buried at this point, again, you would think that potentially this could get dull, but it somehow does not. For me, it just continues to somehow keep getting better on every listen, and it's not really one I can sit with very often, unfortunately, because of the length. But my God, is it just such a treat whenever I listen to this. This is a Georgian artist, and if you want to just have a style of music that you may never really get exposed to from, you know, the 1950s, maybe even 40s-ish time period, then please sit with this. This is a wonderful album. Now at number 43, I have Labelle's Ochestre Univers, which is an album that I shone a lot of light on throughout the course of 2019. It was one of the most unique albums I heard throughout that year, and not only that, but just one of the more unique albums I think I've heard, period. It blends together Maloya, electronic somehow, and classical music. It is quite a special release, all performed in a live setting, and you don't even know that it's a live album. At the end, on the final track where it ends, and you know, you've got this audience clapping, and you're just like, what? Certainly a form of music that I don't think many of my listeners or viewers really have that much knowledge on, or maybe investment in. But believe me when I say, when you dig into this genre even further, you will find so many gems, and I'm so happy that I stumbled across this, because this is such a brilliant album. At number 42, one of my favourite post-punk albums from one of my favourite post-punk bands of the past 10 years, to be honest. I've got Protomartyr with Relatives in Descent. The opening track to me is a contender for one of the best opening tracks of the decade, and it pretty much never dampens from there either. I think that a lot of post-punk music these days isn't quite as exciting as it may have been, you know, from the 80s. A lot of it's quite revivalist, but I don't really feel like Protomartyr are a band that do just revive. They add their own spin to it. They have some really interesting lyrical themes across their music, and they're just providing so much great music for this genre in the 2010s, and yeah, I love this. So while I don't usually consider myself the biggest lover of power pop music, although if I hear any Jimmy Eat World slander, I will get angry, I will say that somehow the Beths with Future Me Hates Me just locked me in ways that I don't usually find with this style of music. It's not me looking down on the genre, by the way. I just usually find this music to be pretty fun, sweet on the ears, and it's nice enough for what it is, but it never usually resonates with me like this. I mean, Weezer could never make an album that gets me like this, but holy shit, Future Me Hates Me is really, really quite special. I wouldn't usually often do this with albums that I love, but I actually think this only over time will become more and more of a cult classic for people, because I just don't think there is any band out there that's quite capturing that essence of power pop music in the way that the Beths are doing right now. This could be like, you know, seen as a potential classic in a few years, and I think more and more people will just grow to love this, because they're just filling that void that I think is desperately needed to be filled. And yeah, man, the Beths, wow. Tropical Fuckstorm next to kick off the top 40. I think what they were doing with the drones was incredibly impressive, and then somehow a laughing death Meatspace really took the sound one step further and incorporated these psychedelic, swirly whirlwind of ideas into the music. And I think TFS and the drones, of course, are just constantly impressing me. It's crazy. It's like I'm basically a stan at this point. Like, almost everything they do is at least good to me, and I just can't really find negatives to say about them at all. The opening track here, You Let My Tires Down, what the hell, man? Like, there aren't many ones that can just create that type of like cinematic explosion to kick off an album. Like, they do it every time as well. Every album they do, the opening track is just magnificent, and I don't know how they do it every time, but yeah. TFS, one of my favorite rock bands around. The Drones, of course, as well. Gareth Lydiard, man, what a treasure. Kinoko, Teikoku next with Uzu ni Naru, which is a Japanese band who are blending elements of rock and shoegaze music here. I did do an Undiscovered Gems episode for this because I just couldn't not ignore this. Like, this is just really, really well-crafted rock music with that shoegaze twist. That totally reminds me of one of my favorite albums of all time from a band named Walrus, and it just brought back those same feelings that I felt listening to that album too. It's not quite as claustrophobic as what Walrus were doing. It's a bit cleaner and catchier, and I just love this vocalist. I think she has such a dreamy voice, and their music is fantastic too. One of my favorite indie rock bands at the moment, at number 38, we have Hop Along with Bark Your Head Off Dog. It took me a while to realize that this is in fact their best album, but when it clicked, it really severely clicked with me, like massively. How Simple being one of the best songs of 2018 for me, The Fox in Motion being a major highlight, Prior Things, these are some of their best songs, I think. And Francis as a vocalist is so expressive and filled with character that I just can't really say no to it, because aside from a band like Wolf Parade that were doing it in the 2000s, there aren't really any bands at the moment that have that vocalist that just shines through in such a unique way, in indie rock music specifically I'm talking about here. So Francis is killing it. The band are fantastic. I just think they're going to keep getting better, honestly. And Bark Your Head Off Dog, what a great... At number 37, I have one of the better jazz albums that I think has come out in recent years. Not one that people will have on their lists. I'm sure many people would have like The Epic or maybe Sons of Kemet, that type of stuff. But for me personally, I just love GoGo Penguin's version 2.0. This is just such a gorgeous album, man. Like, holy shit, these melodies just stick with me like crazy. And the closing track on this as well, oh god, it is to die for. I love this album, and I'm not sure if this band really have anything quite as good as this, but my god, this album just floors me every time I listen to it. At number 36, we have the early days of the artist Perfume genius, when he was much more lo-fi and a bit messier, I guess, but it's certainly one of his best albums to me anyway, and that is Learning. I find this to just be an incredibly astounding listen because of how intimate it is, and yet some of the tracks do sound fairly poor in terms of like their recording quality, the mixing, that type of stuff, but it doesn't really ever hold the album back, to be honest. It's such a beautiful album. Perfume Genius's voice can just carry the whole thing regardless of how the music ever sounded, and I think I'd still be all over it, honestly. But Learning is a stunner, an absolute stunner. An absolute essential footwork release here at number 35. We have DJ Rashad's Double Cup. Unfortunately, DJ Rashad did pass away during the decade, but he did leave us with this amazing release here. Footwork is a genre that just blends amazing elements of dance music, hip-hop music, all that kind of great electronic music as well. And honestly, if more people had heard this album throughout the decade, I think this could have been like a shift in the landscape of what could have been in hip-hop music, to be honest. But maybe we'll see that shift one day, but I just love this for what it is. I think Double Cup is just so fucking good. 34, we have Wiseblood with Titanic Rising, and just what a comforting comforting Baroque pop album this is. Like, I just can't say no to her voice. She's just an angel. She's just an absolute angel. And I've spoke so much about this album recently, in my year-end lists and stuff, so I feel like I should just leave it at that. You know how much I love Titanic Rising at this point. It's a wonderful album. Emperor X at 33. I had to do a separate video on this a while back too. Just one of those albums that just struck me massively, and Emperor X just has that Mountain Goat's approach to songwriting and lyrics that I can't say no to. And he sung Allahu Akbar as well. Wow, like that just still floors me every time I hear it. It's a complete gem of an album for fans of indie music. Please listen to this if you never have. It's quite fantastic. At number 32, I have Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds with Ghosteen. An absolute killer of an album, honestly, just the way the lyrics are written. Nick's poetry. These songs are very slow and patience testing. It took a few listens to really sit with me properly, but once it clicked, it was an album that I just couldn't really fathom, like just how he writes his lyrics. The final track as well, with the religious imagery, bright horses, man, yeah, it's just hard to talk about just listening to Nick's like the distress, but it also is an album that is filled with hope as well, and I think that's the important thing to take away from it. At 31, a much more upbeat and happy album, I would say, is The Archandroid by Janelle Monáe. For the longest time, this was like my album of the year for 2010, but only quite recently I discovered that there was an album that I preferred to this, which we will find out more about later. But Janelle Monáe, man, I just think she mastered this sound here, like this R&B, pop, neo-soul vibe that I think is obviously a huge callback to Prince, of course. You couldn't not make that comparison. But I think she makes it her own completely, and puts out some of the most fulfilling tracks, I think, of the decade. Tightrope, Cold War, O Maker, just such good songs. At 30, I have some choro music, which is this Brazilian style of music, but it's in fact performed by a Japanese band called Coco Ya, and this is an album called Frevo. It's just the most joyous thing that I can think of this past decade. It just gives me the same feelings as when I was watching the film Little Women, which came out in 2019. It's just so lovely and welcoming. Parquet Courts at 29 with Wide Awake. This is one of my favourite rock albums of the decade. It's incredibly politically charged. It's as left-wing as you can possibly get, I think, unless you're thinking of a band like Idols, then maybe they would be Parquet Courts in that sense. But I just find the song incredibly well crafted. I just think the songs are very catchy. The performances are the best I think the band has ever done, to be honest, and it has their best songs as well. Tenderness, the title track as well, just a great album. It really just harkens back to like the I guess 70s 80s post-punk days with just a bit more of a modern flavour to it, and there's so much to love about this. Scheiben sur Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead fame, San Express, with a really interesting blend of qawwali music. It's Johnny Greenwood involved, of course. It's produced incredibly well, and the melodies are absolutely beautiful. I just find this to be one of the most interesting like foreign albums I've discovered over the past 10 years, and it only just gets better and better as I listen to it more. It's incredibly hypnotic, and if you just want to delve into some new genres from all types of different places, then this is certainly one to start with. I think it's incredibly accessible, and it's amazing. At 27, an album that I don't think will ever really let me down, and that is Jeff Rosenstock's Worry. It just brings me back to those teen years. I think he emulates that pop-punk sound incredibly well, the panicky, sort of like distressed approach to his lyrics is quite relatable, I think, for a lot of people. It's quite an anxious album in a lot of ways, but my god, the songs just feel written like they just feel like they're written with the most amount of passion you could possibly think of. It's such a good album, and then at the end where all the songs like just charge into each other, it's just relentless, and it never slows down, and it's such a great listen. My album of the year for 2018 at number 26, Avondale Bowling Club, with Tom Scott's amazing rapping ability on this album, backed by this beautiful jazz music, which is something that I don't really feel like is explored enough in hip-hop, to be honest, because you do get a lot of jazz rap artists, but you don't really have this live jazz setting in which a lot of artists can explore their rapping, their introspective lyrics in the way that Tom Scott did. And I just find this album to be completely one of a kind. And again, the lyrics on here I just think are phenomenal. I think the way he just depicts that working class life, of that lack of access to resources, money, all that kind of stuff, is really, really powerful, actually. And I think the music that's backing it is amazing too, so it's just got everything. And one of my favorite hip-hop albums of the 2010s, easily. The Hotelier at number 25, an album I didn't think would ever be this high, but the more I listen to it, the more I realize that this is one of the best Midwest emo albums of all time. Like, this easily rivals some of the 90s stuff that I've heard. And, a lot of people just feel like this revivalist style of emo music in the 2010s has kind of been throwaway, but I don't really feel like not that many bands write as strongly as the Hotelier do. And not only that, but as kind of as I guess whiny as his voice can be at times, he does sing extremely well. He's on point with a lot of the singing, and I think that's quite a rare thing to find in this genre too. But yeah, man, I just think you've got to listen to this and feel every word that this guy says, because it can be incredibly emotive, and that's what I love about it. At 24, I've got Masakatsu Tagaki, who is an artist I discovered not that long ago, actually, but everything I've just played from this man is an absolute gem, and this is a soundtrack to the Wolf Children film, and it really, really takes me back every time. Just listening to this man's music takes me back all the time, but tracks like Mother's Song, I just get incredibly emotional to, actually, which is quite rare for me to do in regards to music. I'm not a particularly emotional person, I don't really express how I feel but I just feel like Masakatsu just reaches into me and pulls emotions out in ways that not many other artists is able to do, and it just calls to me, late at night. I just want an album like this to comfort me, and it's absolutely stellar. It is absolutely stellar. Now at number 23, I do have Seba Kapstad with Thina. This is probably one of the latest discoveries of the decade for me, and yet it's this high on the list, which really only goes to show the amount of talent that this band has. Pure, just raw talent, because it's a debut album. It's amazing. It's just neo soul and nailed. I think there aren't many neo soul albums of this decade that quite master it like this, and it's so early on in their days. Like, who knows, they could grow from here and make an even better album. And I just want to shower all the amount of praise onto this band, because they just killed it with this one. At number 22, an album that many people expressed to be a bit of a disappointment in 2019, but it really just gave me everything I wanted, and maybe even a little bit more too, and that was Injury Reserve's self-titled album, which I just find, again, to be a display of how good a hip-hop group can come together and craft such creative music. And I find, Richie with a T to be one of the most engaging rappers of the past 10 years as well, which again, not many people seem to agree with, but I just find his voice to be incredibly on point. The lyrics are often really funny, in your face, kind of tongue-in-cheek, all that. And not only that, but they just give you an insight to who they are on some of these tracks too. I mean, Groggs is always just on point with those emotional verses, which again, I don't know if there are really that many rap albums out there that quite deliver it in a way that they do. Parker Corey's production is incredibly unique. You don't really get rappers rapping over beats like, you know, Jailbreak the Tesla. I don't know, man. I just struggle to see what people had issues with this album. I just feel that this is a hip-hop group that's giving you everything. You know, all their projects are incredibly diverse. So maybe I'll be on my own in a few years' time still praising these guys, but I'll still be loving these albums for sure, because they just give me everything I want from hip-hop music in the 2010s. At 21, one of my favourite rock albums, again, of the decade here, and that's Queens of the Stone Age with Like Clockwork. I just find this album to be such a versatile rock release. You've got those darker moments, you've got those really, really, you know, gloomier moments on here. But then you have, you know, If I Had a Tail, and then you also have I Sat by the Ocean, like groovier moments too. Like, how does this band just kill it with every type of rock music that they just throw at you? I don't know how they do it. I see Josh Homme as being one of the most great rock singers of probably the 21st century. I've been killing it since the early 2000s as well, if you want to count those earlier releases from them. But yeah, Like Clockwork, everything they were doing before to a higher standard, I think. And it's rare as well. Like, comeback albums like this can usually flop quite hard, but I don't think Queens of the Stone Age would ever be able to flop that hard with their music. And I love this shit. Throw Me in a River by Smith Street Band at number 20. We're in the top 20 now. And this album just seems to get better and better with each listen for me. I just find this vocalist's wailing in a lot of ways. He really does wail, but I find it to be incredibly impassioned and really quite chilling at times, actually, just some of the lyrics that he expresses on this album. And I don't know, I just always see this album as a major highlight in pop punk for the 2010s, and yet, you know, not many people really seem to recognize it in that kind of way. It's not just strictly pop punk, and of course I have already mentioned Worry by Jeff Rosenstock, but I feel like if you're a fan of that album, this album offers a similar thing in that. And I think the approach to songwriting from the Smith Street Band is not really like anyone else from the 2010s, and that's why I just love this album so much. And those closing moments of the album, oh god, the way he just screams out those words, it just really hits you in the face. It is something else. At number 19, I have one of my favorite country albums of the decade, Jason Isbell with Southeastern. I think Jason Isbell, man, he's just such a treat, isn't he? He's the nicest guy ever, and you just feel that on this album. The vocal performances on this are just some of the best in country music I've heard in the 2010s, and it really doesn't come close, actually, in some ways, because I just find this to be an album that should surely convert people who aren't really fans of country music or Americana music, because how could you not love this? Like, this is just everything that this genre does right, and Jason Isbell is an absolute master, and Southeastern, wow. Next, I've got an album that just never fails to make me laugh, and that is Alex Cameron's Forced Witness. This album is just comedy in music form, to be honest. Like, there aren't really any albums this decade that still, after as many listens, still just put a smile on my face and just get completely entertained by this character that he's made up here. This super macho man who sees himself as this, you know, womanizer type guy who goes on the internet and just, you know, pretends that he's someone else just so it's from women. It's just such a foolproof character that I just find to be incredibly funny, and it's pretty on point too. I feel like there are people out there like that, and I feel like that's the best type of style where you're, you know, satirizing something that already exists and just turn it into something incredibly playful and and entertaining in the way he does. And, you know, it's just like watching a TV show that's, you know, like, I guess, Arrested Development, Community, whatever, any of those that just entertain me endlessly, even to this day. And listening to this album just provides that same enjoyment for me. Laurie McKenna with The Bird and the Rifle at number 17, with an album here that actually somehow one-ups Jason Isbell's Southeastern, even though I was praising that to high end with it being one of the best country albums of the decade. Here, Laurie McKenna, I think, has delivered what is the best country album of the decade for me. I've talked about this at length before in a separate video, so I can't really do this album any more justice than I already have, because I feel like the amount of detail I went in on that video really just portrayed the greatness that Laurie McKenna shows us on this album. Just her lyrics, the way she, you know, is this mother figure who drops this advice to, you know, younger women, the way she does on tracks like Halfway Home, just giving this empowering message that isn't just like, I don't know, for internet, you know, woke points that you always see, you know, floating around viral tweets or whatever. No, like, Laurie McKenna is very specific with her advice and just shows, you know, other women that this isn't the right way and maybe you should just rethink the things that you're doing. There are men out there that won't care about you, and you just got to look out for that. And I just love the way Laurie McKenna puts this into words, and even on tracks that aren't doing that, she's still just writing wonderful music like Humble and Kind, the opening track as well. The way she compares herself to Whiskey on the closing track sounds like a really stereotypical country type of song that could go incredibly wrong, but not the way Laurie McKenna writes it. It's incredibly revealing and heartbreaking too. And yeah, man, just not many country albums have hit me like this. So yeah, what a listen this is. Please listen to it if you never have. My 2017 album of the year here with Perfume Genius and No Shape. Perfume Genius, I think, mastered everything he was doing before to this incredibly lush, and God, the way this album was engineered as well, like, holy shit, it's completely, like, immaculate the way it sounds. It's ridiculous, honestly, how anyone was able to craft songs in the way that the producers were on this album. But Perfume Genius's performances are absolutely flawless too. On tracks like Slip Away and Wreath, his vocals are absolutely phenomenal, and the duet that he does with Wiseblood as well is beautiful. Yeah, this was just the easy pick for my album of the year for 2017. I just don't really find many albums out there that sound like this, and I just know that Perfume Genius will probably take it to the next level once again with his next album. I'm sure of it. The rock band that I'm always praising next, with Bent Knee and Shiny Eyed Babies at number 15. Wow, this is just a complete theatrical performance of a release, isn't it? The way Courtney's vocals just continuously burst the way they do with these instrumentals that somehow live up to her amazing voice just floors me, honestly. Like, there aren't rock bands out there that sound like this or make music in the way that they do, and it's just an incredibly impressive listen from start to finish. Tracks like Way Too Long are just amazing too. They go heavier, they go a bit softer at times, and Shiny Eyed Babies is just the best that this band, I think, has ever been able to, even with their 2019 album, which was also very, very good, which made it onto the top 100 as well. But I just don't think many rock bands come close to albums like this. And now the other artist that I'm always praising and talking about at number 14, and that is Kate Tempest with Everybody Down. This album is, I just get taken aback by it every time I listen to it, honestly. I just find the way Kate writes her music to be just so unique. The way that she just flawlessly writes her poetry, and this concept that's kind of running through the album too is extremely interesting as well. It's not quite as vivid as what she was doing on the Book of Traps and Lessons, because that was just more of a reflection of what's currently going on in the UK right now. But what she did on Everybody Down, which is what I love so much about it and love more than her other albums, is that she made it into a story and told this story on every track, and created these characters and used like the way that Britain is currently, the state of Britain, sorry, that it currently is in, and kind of fit these characters into this story. And also, she's just rapping her ass off on this one too. Like, this is not like her follow-up releases where they're more spoken word, but this is just Kate Tempest showing that she's easily one of the best rappers in the UK and can also pen lyrics that are better than pretty much anyone else out there as well. Next, I have one of my favourite rap albums of the decade. It is, in fact, technically a mixtape, but it is that good that it deserves to be this high for me, and that is Floss from Injury Reserve. This is higher than their self-titled album, mostly because I just think that track like 1 to 5 run is some of the best hip-hop music I think I've heard all decade. Just banger after banger after banger. You got Oh Shit, you got All This Money, you got Bad Boys 3, like wow, like they just killed it on every single track here. Cakes to Killer gives one of my favorite like features of the decade. I think that feature that he puts on this album is ridiculous, honestly, and I just can't think of many other features that come quite close to it, honestly. And then you've got the more personal tracks towards the end of the album, which I find to be incredibly introspective and interesting. And I just find, again, like what I've already said about this group, is that they're making accessible music, but also doing it in a way that not many artists I think are doing right now at all. And I'm here for it. I'm here for this, because Floss will just have endless replay value for me for the rest of eternity. Like, I just don't think I'll ever get bored of some of these tracks. I still play them all the time, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Pop music perfection at number 12 with Suzanne Sunfer and 10 Love Songs. If every pop album sounded like this, I think we would have a completely different landscape of pop music right now. But not everyone can make songs like Fade Away or Memorial, and that's because Suzanne Sunfer is an absolute raw talent that doesn't really get replicated often. The way she incorporates electro-pop elements with these kind of modern classical elements too just makes for a really, really unique listen. And not only that, but these tracks are just absolutely stellar, and I just think Suzanne's music is really like no other. Like all her albums have something unique about them that I think she just brings to the table in ways that not many other artists do, and her voice is so angelic, and these tracks to me are just absolutely breathtaking. Next at number 11, my album of the year for 2019, Shinichiro Yokota, just missing out on the top 10 with I Know You Like It. This is just amazing dance music, man. Like, I cannot not find a time where I won't be grooving to these tracks, like Tokyo, friggin' Night Drive, friggin' Timeless. Like why would I not just get up and go for a run and listen to this entire album from start to finish? Like, why would I not do that? Shinichiro's repetitive approach to making these dance tunes could border on annoying for some people, and maybe, a bit, boring or whatever, but for me, I just think he masters it. There's that fine line between where something goes on for a bit too long and being at the exact amount of time that it should be on for, and I just think Shinichiro nails it with that, with his 90s throwback feel to these tracks. Somehow sounds incredibly modern to this day too. I just love this shit, man. I just could play this all day and somehow not get bored of it. And please check out his 2016 or 2015 release too. I think you would definitely like that if you like this. We are at the top 10 now, and I am sorry for this video going on for as long as it is once again, but hopefully you're sticking around and hearing me out on my picks here, because there's just so much to say on each one that I don't really know how to shorten it. And this next pick is probably an obvious pick for someone like me, but it is Regina Spektor and Remember Us to Life. Regina Spektor, to me, is just magical. Like, there isn't an artist out there that can write songs like this for me. The way that she the way that she makes songs like The Visit, the way that she makes songs like Bleeding Heart, like, how does she do it? I do not know. To me, she's just this wise lady who I want to sit down with and just get given all the greatest life advice from, because I just know that she's there to offer it at any time. She's there to just be with you, and I just love that about her music and this album, and the way she makes songs that, you know, not many other artists write. You know, Sellers of Flowers, I just don't really think there are many artists out there that quite capture that in the way that she does. And Regina Man, somehow this isn't even her best as well. Like, it's amazing to me, but Soviet Kitsch is probably better than this. And I just love her style. I love her approach to writing this piano-based music. And this album is easily in my top 10 for the decade. Ichiko Aoba at number 9 with the album Zero, and this is just pretty much everything that she's done, but somehow amplified to this higher level that I don't really quite know how to explain. The delicacy of her songwriting is just completely unmatched. You would think it's the most simple approach to making music, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but Ichiko Aoba just has this touch with a guitar and can make this amazing music with just so little in her sight. Like, there's barely anything being added onto this music, and yet it sounds as amazing and fresh as it does. I just get this warm feeling whenever I listen to Ichiko's voice, and that's really enough for me to be taken into this world of hers, because obviously she's singing in a language that I don't understand and I don't know, but I just feel that it completely transcends that. And I just love that about music. I love that, you know, she could be saying anything but it doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter to me, because it gives me that feeling that I just want to feel every time I listen to an album. The Roots at number 8 with How I Got Over. I think this album is their best album. I really do. I think this is the best we've ever heard from The Roots. I think this is some of the best rapping from Black Thought. I think musically it's easily some of the best hip-hop music of the decade, because I just find the approach to these beats incredibly sharp and unique, and I have not much else to say about it, really. I just don't really see any of their other albums matching this. They don't have the hooks on the other albums that this album has. They don't have the sort of engaging music either, the beats. You got incredible performances from John Legend on here too. It's just everything I want from hip-hop music, and The Roots deliver it on this album here. What a project this one is. At number 7, we have an album that only a few nights ago completely clicked with me the way it did here. It was not this high at all, but somehow walking to this in the dark just really brought something out of the album that I hadn't really noticed before. It's a piano heavy bass album from Germa Yefroshiwa, and the album is titled Love and Peace, and my goodness, is it just everything it says in the title. Similarly to Ichiko Aoba, there is so little being used on this album. It is essentially just piano performances, but just labeling it as that is kind of insulting the genius of the performances here, because there aren't really many piano albums that quite do it like this one. Germa Yefroshiwa, I believe, is from Ethiopia, and I don't know much about them as an artist at all, but I know that this album here somehow evokes all these powerful emotions just through the music. There are no performers here, there are no singers, there are no vocalists or anything like that, and it's incredibly special. At number 6, I have Julia Holter, but I know a lot of people will have Avery very high up on their list, and it is on my list too. You may remember seeing it somewhere in the 50s on my list, but Have You in My Wilderness is the one for me. I just find everything about this Baroque pop music that she's doing here, this chamber pop sound, to be absolutely on point. She of course did take it to the next level on Aviary, but I just find the songs here way more captivating, like Beths on the Roof is just perfection, honestly. Sea Calls Me Home, Feel You, I just think the way that she's kind of making these tracks into pop tunes is really quite unique, I think, and again, just displaying how this decade is providing some genre twists of styles from decades ago, but because of the talent that these artists have, they're just making best we've ever seen from these genres. I mean, I just don't think even from like Julie Holter's clear influences, we have albums as good as this, as good as Aviary, as good as Loud City Song. A lot of people love Nico, but I wouldn't even put her anywhere near what Julie Holter is doing here. So yeah, she is just one of the greatest artists of our time, and I hope people will slowly start to see that as time goes on, because I think people are starting to catch on a little bit now, but I just want to see her become so much bigger in the 2020s. She deserves it. We are in the top 5 right now, and we have the comeback album from A Tribe Called Quest with We Got It From Here, Thank You For Your Service. And what an album title that is as well. Like, I love the way that they just came back for one more time. They passed the torch on to a new generation by having all these amazing features on here. We got Kendrick Lamar, we have Kanye on the album too, we got Anderson .Paak. And for me, it's Tribe doing what they've always done to a level that we hadn't seen them reach, in my opinion, throughout the 90s, which was their golden era. But similarly to the Roots, we have a hip-hop group coming through with what I think is their best work in the 2010s. Which absolutely is not surprising at all, because if you are someone like me, then you view the 2010s as being the greatest decade for hip-hop music we have ever seen. And of course, the legends of this genre that influenced so many years down the line would come back and put out their best album in this decade, because this is just the absolute amazing era for hip-hop music. I mean, it spawned some of the best rappers of our time, some of the best albums, some of the most creative albums, and Tribe Called Quest just ended out their career with something so special. And yeah, what an album this is. For anyone that knows me well, will not be surprised to see Fiona Apple at number 4 with the Idler Wheel, and this to me is definitely the most introspective and interesting breakup type album I think we've heard in the 2010s. While it continues very similar themes to what we've seen from Fiona Apple in the past, it just takes it to a much more darker level, I find, with the music on this album. It's much more gloomier and doomier than what she was doing in the past, where there was a bit more tongue-in-cheekness, a bit more of a happier sort of state of mind, which I don't really feel like we get on this album. It's much more depressing. But my god, does it not harm the album's quality at all. In fact, it only heightens it to a completely new level for me. And I'm just so in love with what Fiona Apple does. I find her lyrical approach incredibly interesting. I find her voice to be completely compelling. Yeah, just everything I've come to love from Fiona Apple at this point. Now we are at number 3. And as I've already mentioned a few times in this video, this is filled with albums that have just grown on me as time's gone by. And this album pretty much captures that completely. The Drones, who have already been on this list a few times already, are at number 3 with I See Seaweed. This is the best they've done. This is the height of what the Drones have achieved throughout the course of their career. No band out there really makes songs like I See Seaweed. No band out there makes songs like the closing track as well, with the incredibly vivid lyrics that they write. Like Gareth Lydiard is just on another level when it comes to music, and I just find his mind to be really interesting. If I could just sit down and talk with Gareth Lydiard and have a pint with him, I would absolutely do that, because I just want to know what kind of person he is. I just want to get in the mind of him and just talk to this band and hear what it is that they have to say about how they make their music, because it's just completely like gargantuan in the way of making rock music. Like, there is just nothing of this scope that I ever seem to manage to get hold of when it comes to music. It's a phenomenal album, and I think it's one that you've got to sit down with, because at first it may just come across as a bit strange, as a bit weird, but once you kind of get into that mindset of what it is they're doing, you suddenly realize the masterpiece that this album is. Oh god, I just love this thing, man. Now at number 2, we have an album that I think is pretty much set in stone now as an album that will make many, many lists, and probably one of the most universally acclaimed albums of all time, I think, especially in the hip-hop genre as well, and that is To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. I don't think I quite have the words to describe this album in the way that would make it any more interesting than what we've already heard people say about this album already. I just remember the first time this album clicked with me, when I realised what exactly he was going for with this narrative, and the way it all comes together right at the end, I find to be incredibly unique in hip-hop music and music in general. It's an album that has to deal with fame. It's an album that Kendrick has to view the type of person that he is and the type of person he wants to be. Does he want to be this man with this huge platform of, millions of fans, and, what can he do with that platform? He has to reflect upon himself, the kind of person he is, and understand what exactly he is meant to do. And he does not have those answers. He does not see himself as that type of person, and he does not know how he's meant to become that type of person. And the only way he can manage to do it is by asking someone who is so influential on his life. And even when he tries to do that, we don't get an answer, and the album ends. I think this album is important in that sense, because a lot of people have that pressure to, use their platforms for positivity and spread messages that hopefully reach out to many people. And I just think there are some people out there that just don't have it in them to do that. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to understand that you're not that person sometimes. And I think that's what this album essentially tells you. And it's a gifted album for me, because there aren't many albums that explore these types of themes in the way that Kendrick did on here. And that's why it's become one of the most universally beloved albums in hip-hop, in the history of hip-hop and the history of music. And it is just one of a kind. But somehow that is not my number 1 album of the decade. And my number 1 of the decade is Kageyaki by Masakatsu Tagaki. Yes, this is my number 1 album of the decade, and it is an album like no other. I just don't think I've ever really laid my ears upon an album that quite sounds anything like this. It's one of the most natural sounding albums I think I've ever heard, and the way that Masakatsu uses his voice as an extra instrument in the music too, and the way that these tracks are arranged are just flawless. Like, I just don't find songs like Utagaki number 2 or anything on this album, and it just leaves me speechless every time I listen to it. I just can't find the words to describe what I'm listening to every time I put it on, and for that reason I just don't see how any other album can quite make it to number 1 on this list. Even when you look at my other picks in my top 10, you've got Regina Spektor, you've got Fiona Apple, you've got The Drones, and all those artists I think are incredibly unique in the way that they make their music, but they are also artists that are expanding on what they've done previously. And you've got artists like The Roots as well that are doing that with How I Got Over, Tribe Called Quest. Even Kendrick Lamar has his influences shown quite clearly on To Pimp a Butterfly. But Masakatsu Tagaki, I just think, is a complete one-of-a-kind musician where I just can't really pinpoint any artists that I feel like, oh, they've done this before, oh, this sounds like this. And although there's a lot more to music than just being unique, I just feel like Masakatsu just takes it beyond that and takes it to a level of music that I just can't quite pinpoint in any way. And it just offers me something that no other artist has ever been able to offer before. And for that reason, this astonishing piece of music is my number one album of the decade. Kagayaki is my number one. Hopefully you listen to this based on what I've said if you've never heard it before and you enjoy it as much as I do. But thank you for watching my video. I hope you've stuck around for the whole length of time. Sorry for the length of this video once again. It is a long one, but I hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully you got some recommendations out of it. And hopefully you enjoyed my list. Hopefully you agree. Hopefully you subscribe. And hopefully you have a good day. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you would have as your favorite album of the decade. Thank you. Share this video if you haven't already. That would be really useful to promote the channel and all that kind of stuff. Have a good day, and goodbye. Woo.